Bob Schroyer with Nancy's Knickknacks, and today we're going to video the winding of really fine yarn. We had some people ask some questions as to whether or not the cone winder would ever be able to wind really fine yarn. Of course, when I heard that question, I wondered why were they asking that, because that's what we do here all the time, is wind really fine yarn with our ball winder. So it never struck me that that would be an issue. But nonetheless, I went out and ordered a variety of fine yarns. This particular one that you see on the cone is a 10-2 cotton. I've also got some bamboo and some tencel, which I'll demonstrate, and they're all pretty fine. After we do the winding and put yarn on cones, we will then put the cones on our pets, our yarn pets, and also we'll put them on yarn cores. Here you can see we're winding the 10-2 cotton from the Yarn Pet Duo. That's about a pound of yarn there, by the way, on that cone, so it's kind of heavy. It'll work okay with the Duo. But anyway, that shows you how it comes off of there. I can increase the speed a little bit. So there's the ball of yarn being formed on the cone. It is a hybrid cone in that it forms a ball on the cone surface. But now you can use that cone in a number of ways. Now you can also use the yarn on a core, yarn ball core, that we're going to demonstrate here shortly. That may be more appropriate for people that are using cone yarns, weavers and what have you. But nonetheless, you can mount the fine yarn directly onto the cone. You can see how that cone is turning out. Looks like a pretty good ball to me. I'm not sure what anyone would have a concern or a problem with that nicely shaped ball on the cone. It's not wound like a traditional cone, but we've successfully mounted and wound that yarn directly on the cone surface. I can now remove that cone. The yarn will stay put on the cone. So it really does achieve whatever you're trying to accomplish by putting it on the cone in the first place, as far as we're concerned. Now we're going to wind some tencel. I have to get the number on this particular tencel, but I think it's 100% tencel 2/8. 2/8, so it's very, very thin. I've taken the cone of 10-2 cotton, taken it very tightly on that cone. You can control the tightness, of course, with our tensioning system. You have a tensioner on the cone winder and you have a tensioner on the pet. Okay, we have the tencel on the floor, on the pet, and I've got the cone winder loaded, ready to go, so we'll press the run button. And see how the cone winder handles that light tencel. Just to show you again, here's the tencel we just wound. Didn't put on very much on there, but you can see that it's making a nice ball on the cone. Small diameter spindle. That's the spindle that the cone was positioned over. Once we make a ball on there, we can then transfer that to a yarn ball core, which is our tube. Our tube is very similarly shaped to the core, or the tube, if you want to call it that the tencel came on. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, let's assume we've wound our yarn onto the small diameter spindle. You have to transfer yarn to a yarn ball core, which is this tube, you have to wind it onto either the ball winder or the small diameter spindle on the ball winder. So in this case, since the Small diameter spindle comes with the cone winder. Now when you use the yarn mounted on the core, we simply put on our rod, we have a collar, we put the wood disc, you can slide down the rubber stopper, that sits on there. So now I'm going to wind it onto the ball winder again. Okay, so now we're using the yarn we removed from the tube that came from the manufacturer. We put on our yarn ball core. Here we're winding some bamboo, 16/2 bamboo yarn. Very fine. The fine yarn being wound as a ball onto the cone. So I hope this little demonstration of how the cone winder, heavy-duty cone winder, or the ball winder, it's the same tool basically. We're just putting yarn on cone shapes or on yarn ball cores. We could also just make a ball with it. We can do 3 different types of winding in that sense: cones, cores, or balls. And it doesn't matter how fine the yarn is. It doesn't matter how thick the yarn is. I have some people winding what appears to be rope almost. So anyway, hopefully this short demonstration here was helpful to you. If you have any questions or concerns about winding certain weights of yarn, just get a hold of us. We can demonstrate it if we have that yarn available. If we don't, we'll see if we can get a hold of it. But after this demonstration with these 3 very fine yarns, I have no doubts whatsoever that either the ball winder or the cone winder can adequately wind these yarns without any problems. Thank you.